Welcome to Psychological Explorations with Dr. Michael Axelman and Daniela. We return once again to Dr. Maurice Nicoll, neurosurgeon, psychoanalyst who trained under Jung and later in life studied under Gurdjieff and Ouspensky and wrote a remarkable 5-volume commentary on the teachings of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. We're pulling the talk today, Self-Observation, is drawn from volume 1. The 5 volumes were a collection of over 500 talks that he gave between 1941 and 1953, the time of his death, all on the teachings of the fourth way. Self-observation as a means of change. The whole of the work starts from a man beginning to observe himself. Self-observation is a means of self-change. Serious and continuous self-observation, if done right, leads to definite inner changes in a man. Observing is not knowing. To see all this requires directed attention. Self-observation is an act of attention directed inwards to what is going on in you. The attention must be active, that is, directed. The attention comes from the observing side, whereas the thoughts and the emotions belong to the observed side of yourself. Passive knowing can be said to be mechanical, in contrast to self-observation, which is a conscious act and cannot become mechanical. Mechanical observation has nothing to do with work self-observation. So, for example, take the case of a person you dislike. Somebody's gotten under your skin in some environment in your life. What thoughts crowd your mind? What do the chorus of voices speaking to you say? What unpleasant emotions surge up inside of you? How are you treating the person you dislike badly inside? Many often mistake thinking for observation. Nicoll states a man may think about himself all day and never observe himself once. A man must observe everything in himself and always as if it were not himself but it. He then sees now these thoughts going on in him, now these emotions, now these private plays and self-dramas, now these elaborate lies, now these speeches, excuses, inventions. He goes on asleep again and takes part in them all. That is, he acts in the play he has composed and thinks it is real. He acts in the play he has composed and thinks it is real. So when negative I arises, we must say, this is not me. When you are in an unpleasant state, if you observe yourself over some considerable time, you will notice that all sorts of different groups of unpleasant I's try to deal with it in succession and make something out of it. This is because negative I's live by being negative. Enjoyment of negative states must be evaluated. In the work, the enjoyment of negative states must be observed sincerely, especially the secret enjoyment of them. The reason is that if a man enjoys being negative in whatever forms, and they are legion, he can never separate from them. For whatever you identify with, you become. On inner talking, you have noticed, of course, that inner talking always goes on in negative states, and that it coins many unpleasant phrases which suddenly find expression in outer talking, perhaps long after. In the work, we are told that it is necessary to be careful about wrong outer talking at first, and later on about wrong inner talking. They are all inner forms of lying. And this is why they have such strength and persistence. Lies are always more powerful than truth because they can hurt. It is how you behave internally and invisibly to one another that really counts. Practicing self-observation. But even the first stages of self-observation have a certain effect. They let in rays of light into the darkness of our psychic life. All the instructions of the work are about one psychic life, which is in chaos. As self-observation becomes deeper, the valuation of the work becomes more and more internal. So the work begins to act on essence, on what is the real part of man. So in closing, we have this dividing of the observer from the observed. He must divide himself into it and observing I. That is into two. Then later on he may become one, a unity. The instrument of self-observation is like a knife that cuts away from what is not us. If you begin to see what it means to say, this is not I, then you begin to use this instrument. And finally, on change, you cannot remain the same and change. The idea of change is to not be the same. Thank you for joining us once again. Psychological Explorations. Look forward to connecting with you shortly.